Hi, I'm Dan Costa, Chief Content Officer at Worth Media Group, and we are still in Davos. I'm joined by CEO Josh Campbell. Josh, we're still in Davos. We've elevated ourselves. We're now at the top of the mountain. The views are even more spectacular. Maybe tell us a little bit about what brings us here this morning.
So we've partnered with Global Conversations, which is hosting a family office event up here. Really, again, Davos brings together those unique audiences, from the senior executives to the world leaders to the capital. Capital coming from institutional investors, capital coming from family offices. So today it'll be a dialogue around how family offices could be a catalyst for change. And it'll be a fun day. One of our techonomists or people in our community, Aloe Black, who played our techonomy event, will be up here speaking. Really excited for a fun day.
Yeah, it was fun to see him on the agenda. I like to think maybe we played some role tangentially in that, but he's quite popular these days, both on the charts and in places like this at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
So the other thing we did yesterday, we had a great event with Wipro. We talked about the future of jobs and skilling. I don't know it was a great conversation. There was a lot of smart people on stage. I think I came away with it with a different conclusion, but maybe talk about, what you got out of the conversation.
Yeah, we brought together, I think, a great group of not just panelists, but an audience that was really there to engage about these topics. Look, we always say we're optimists, we're techno-optimists, that technology will create new opportunity. I think one of the panelists used the word abundance. It will create abundance. The question is, will that abundance be distributed throughout society? I think the panelists were fairly, I think to your turn, realistic, not optimistic, not super pessimistic. But we still did miss. I think when I keep hearing that word, reskilling, upskilling, I question what those skills are and haven't really been able to pin anyone down other than, yes, we all need to be, again, one of the panelists at hands-on keyboards, right? So my point of view now is every job's a technology job, right? There's no job that won't be impacted by AI, and that's unlike any other technology before it.
Yeah, that phrase actually stuck with me too. It came up a couple of times, which is the idea that if you want your team to use AI tools, you need to not just hope that they do it, you need to actually create time in their workday and say, this is what we're doing. You bring in experts to help walk them through it. They're gonna need training. And once you start it, they take it to it usually pretty quickly, but you've got to lean into it. I've talked to like 50 different executives in the last 48 hours. We've had a couple of round tables. We've gone around the table and polled people's concerns. To a man, I've had one executive tell me that this is going to get really ugly in the short term. Other than that, the level of optimism, to me, seems almost unfounded. I understand there's going to be huge productivity gains. I understand it's going to help bottom lines, but I don't think boards are going to let those returns go back to employees or to training. I think it's going to go to shareholders. And I just think we've seen that movie. We know how this works.
But I think, to your point, boards and board governance will really now come into play.
Yeah.
Right? We'll hold the CEO accountable to saying, how are we, number one, incentivizing the executive team to grow? What does that mean, right? Someone brought up a 3-day work week. Okay, great. But does that mean I'm going to get paid 3/5 of what I got paid before?
Yeah.
Or am I still going to get the same pay? I think yesterday, again, we heard this idea, do we want to do more with the same, or do we want to do sort of the same with less? Right, and that's a decision many sort of executives are going to make.
I think that what boards are going to want to say, and CEOs, you are one, they're going to want to do more with less. That is how capitalism works. And I think this idea that that we're going to do the same with less doesn't make a lot of sense. All the companies we've talked to are planning for growth. They're all like, this is a time for growth. AI is going to help it. I haven't heard anybody say they're going to add staff to do it. None of them.
Everyone said, staffing is slowing, attrition is happening, they're not rehiring, they're not necessarily firing and getting rid of people, but they're definitely hiring at a much slower pace.
Yeah, and the news of the Trump inauguration and the announcements are just starting to trickle in, and people are just starting to have that conversation here. But that's also happening in the background. And it's very far away from Davos, but it's that same dynamic.
It's far, but the rumor is it will be very close on Thursday.
Yeah, and the dynamic here, though, is that same political dynamic in the U.S. has unfolded in the U.K., in Italy, in Germany, in France. And the middle class are not happy about the things we're talking about here in Davos. And I do feel like there's not a full acknowledgement of that.
Yeah, well, let's hope for some real conversations today and see where we net out tomorrow.
Amen to that. Well, we'll stay in it. We're in it till Friday. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us. You can find more content on worth.com and YouTube. We'll see you then.